The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of alien representatives sat in their seats watching the holographic display at the center of the chamber. The display showed Earth, a small blue planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Around it, symbols of human civilization blinked like dying stars. Admiral Park Doan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, Earth's largest warship. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars for humanity, and now he watched as his species faced judgment from beings who had never tried to understand them. The High Arbiter Thiessen rose from his throne. He was an insect-like creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and eyes that reflected no light. His voice came through the translation systems cold and final. The Galactic Council has reached its decision. Humanity is found guilty of aggression, expansion without permission, and refusal to accept guidance from superior civilizations. The sentence is banishment. All human vessels capable of faster-than-light travel will be surrendered. Humanity will be confined to their home system. Any human ship found beyond the soul boundary will be destroyed without warning or mercy. Park Doan closed his eyes. He had known this was coming. Everyone had known. The trial was never about justice. It was about fear. The older species of the galaxy had watched humanity spread across 12 colony worlds in just 2 centuries. They had watched humans adapt to environments that killed other species. They had watched human population numbers grow while their own remained stable. They were afraid. And afraid beings did terrible things. On Earth, President Yoon Marais received the news in her office. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for never showing emotion in public. But alone in her office, she allowed herself one moment of rage. She threw her coffee cup against the wall and watched the brown liquid run down the white surface like tears. Then she straightened her jacket and walked. The broadcast room, the cameras activated, and her image went out to every human settlement in the solar system, to the orbital stations around Earth, to the domed cities of Mars, to the mining platforms in the asteroid belt, to the research outposts on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. "My fellow humans," she began. "Today, the Galactic Council has sentenced us to slow death. They call it banishment. They call it justice. But we know what it truly is. It is fear dressed in legal language." She paused, letting her words settle. "They say we are aggressive. But we only fought when the Keshion hegemony tried to harvest our colony worlds for resources, treating our people like animals to be cleared from land they wanted. They say we are violent. But we only defended ourselves when the Moran Collective bombed Sol Orbital, killing 12,000 of our citizens as a test of our resolve." Her voice grew harder. "They say we are unworthy of the stars. But the truth is simpler. We grew too fast. We adapted too well. We refused to bow. And for that, they want us to disappear quietly into the darkness." President Yoon looked directly into the camera, and billions of humans felt as if she was looking at them personally. "The Council expects us to accept this. They expect us to surrender our ships, retreat to our little corner of space, and slowly fade away over the centuries. They think we will give up." A small smile crossed her face. "They do not know us at all." That night, in a secure facility buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Dr. Lee Suji received a visitor. She was an old woman now, her hair completely white, her hands marked with age spots. But her mind was as sharp as it had been 50 years ago. When she first began her work, the visitor was a young man in a military uniform. He handed her a sealed message without speaking. She opened it, read the 3 words inside, and nodded. "Project Horizon is active," she said to herself. Finally. She had been waiting for this moment for decades. When humanity first joined the galactic community, they had been given faster-than-light technology as a gift. But Lee Suji had noticed something strange. The physics behind the technology had gaps. Important principles were missing. It was as if someone had given humanity a car, but removed the instructions for building the engine. She had spent her career quietly investigating these gaps. And she had discovered the truth. The Council had deliberately sabotaged human understanding of FTL physics. They had given humanity enough technology to travel between stars, but not enough to truly understand it. Not enough to improve it. Not enough to become a threat. But Lee Suji was patient. She had gathered other scientists who shared her suspicions. Together, working in absolute secrecy, they had reconstructed the missing knowledge. And then they had gone further. The Cascade Drive was her masterpiece. It did not work like Council FTL technology. It did not create the same energy signatures. It did not trigger the same detection systems. Ships using the Cascade Drive could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. For 20 years. She had kept this secret, waiting for the day when humanity would need it. That day had arrived, in orbit around Earth. Admiral Park Doan gave the order to begin surrendering the fleet. One by one, human warships powered down their weapons and prepared for Council inspection teams. The watching galaxy saw a defeated species accepting their punishment. They did not see the encrypted messages passing between military commanders. They did not see the cargo ships quietly moving toward the outer solar system, carrying equipment that did not appear on any manifest. They did not see the engineers who resigned from official positions only to disappear into classified programs. President Yoon held a final meeting with her most trusted advisors. General Oh Tae-young, commander of ground forces. Admiral Park Do-han, joining by secure hologram, Dr. Lee Suji, appearing in person for the first time in years. Commander Choi Yuna, the youngest person in the room, chosen to lead the secret fleet that did not yet exist. 5 years, President Yoon said. That is how long Dr. Lee needs to complete the first wave of ships. 5 years of playing the role of defeated victims. 5 years of letting the galaxy forget about us. She looked at each person in turn. Can we do this? Can we keep this secret while the Council watches us? Can we rebuild everything we are about to lose in the shadows without anyone knowing? Admiral Park Doan answered for all of them. Madam President, humanity has been underestimated since we first discovered fire. Every obstacle we have faced, every enemy who thought us weak, every challenge that seemed impossible, we have overcome them all. 5 years is nothing. We have been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The meeting ended. The real work began, and the galaxy, satisfied that the human problem had been solved, turned its attention to other matters. They did not notice the quiet determination in human eyes. They did not hear the whispered promises made between friends and families. They did not understand that banishment was not the end of humanity's story. It was only the beginning of the next chapter. 5 years passed slowly in the Sol system. To the watching eyes of the galaxy, humanity appeared to be dying. Galactic observers visited regularly, checking that humans obeyed the terms of their banishment. They found exactly what they expected to find. Human stations had gone dark. The great shipyards that once built vessels capable of crossing the stars now produced only cargo. Ships for moving goods between planets. The human economy had collapsed by 40%. Millions of people who had lived on the colony worlds had returned to Earth, crowding into cities that could barely hold them. The observers wrote their reports with satisfaction. The human problem was solving itself. Give them another century, and they would be a minor species. Confined to their little system, no longer a threat to anyone, they did not see what was happening in the shadows, Commander. Choi Yuna stood inside a hollowed asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, far from any observer's patrol route. Around her, the 20th warship of the Phantom Fleet was taking shape. Workers in sealed suits moved across the hull, installing systems that had never existed before. These ships looked nothing like the vessels humanity had surrendered. They were smaller, faster, built with angles that confused the eye. Their hulls were coated with materials that absorbed sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Their engines produced no heat signature. Their weapons left no traceable energy pattern. The Council gave us their technology like parents giving toys to children, Choi Yuna told her officers. They designed it so we could use it but never understand it, never improve it. They thought that would keep us dependent on them forever. She gestured at the ship before them. They were wrong. Dr. Lee and her team did not just figure out how FTL works. They figured out how to make it better. These ships do not jump through space like Council vessels. They slip between layers of reality itself. The Council has no way to detect them, because the Council does not even know this kind of travel is possible. The officers nodded. They had all volunteered for this duty, knowing they would spend years in secret, away from their families, officially listed as dead or missing. They had accepted this sacrifice because they believed in what humanity was building. On Mars, the public shipyards produced civilian transports under Council supervision. But beneath the red surface, in tunnels that extended for hundreds of kilometers, the real construction was happening. Factories produced weapons, training facilities prepared soldiers, research labs developed technologies that would shock the galaxy. General Oteung oversaw the military preparations. He was a quiet man who rarely raised his voice, but his soldiers would follow him anywhere. He had redesigned human ground combat from the foundation up. Every species in the galaxy fights the same way, he explained to his trainees. They have been fighting the same wars for thousands of years. They have tactics that worked against enemies who no longer exist. They have strategies designed for technologies that are now outdated. They have forgotten how to adapt. He smiled, a rare expression on his serious face. We have not forgotten. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We have constantly invented new ways to win, new ways to surprise our enemies, new ways to turn weakness into strength. The Council thinks they know what human soldiers can do. They are about to learn how wrong they are, far from Sol, in the neutral trade zones that existed between Council territories. A woman named Kang Jie lived under a false identity. She had been an intelligence operative for 15 years, and for the last 3. She had been building networks of contacts, informants, and allies across the galaxy. She worked as a trader, buying and selling goods between species. This gave her reason to travel, reason to talk to many different beings, reason to ask questions. Slowly, carefully, she gathered information. She learned that humanity's banishment had been planned long, before the official reasons were announced. Secret meetings between Council leaders had discussed the human problem for decades. They had decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain among the stars. Not because of anything humans had done, but because of what humans might do in the future. They looked at our history, GA reported to President Yoon through encrypted channels. They saw how fast we spread. They saw how quickly we adapted to new worlds. They calculated that in another 500 years, humans would outnumber every other species in the galaxy combined. They were afraid of what we would become. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. But they also made enemies. Not every species in the Council is happy with their rule. The smaller civilizations resent being told what to do by the old powers. The trading species dislike the restrictions on commerce. There are cracks in the Council's foundation. When we are ready to move, we will not be alone. President Yoon received this information in her office on Earth. She had aged visibly in the 5 years since banishment. The stress of leading humanity through its darkest hour had turned her hair white and lined her face with deep wrinkles. But her eyes remained sharp, and her determination had not weakened. How much longer? She asked Dr. Lee Suji during their weekly meeting. 6 months, the scientist replied. The first wave of ships will be ready. 50 vessels equipped with cascade drives, enough to strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning. And the second wave? Already under construction. Another 100 ships within a year, and we are training crews as fast as we can. Young people who grew up during the banishment, who have spent their whole adult lives preparing for this moment. President Yoon nodded slowly. For 5 years, she had maintained the appearance of a defeated leader. She had given speeches about acceptance and adaptation. She had negotiated with Council observers, thanking them for their patience, promising that humanity would learn to be content with its reduced status. It had been the hardest performance of her life, but it had worked. The galaxy believed that humans had given up. When we move, she said, it must be perfect. We will only have one chance to shock them. After that, they will know what we can do, and they will prepare. Our first strike must be so devastating, so unexpected, that it changes everything. Admiral Park Doan had spent the 5 years publicly working as a civilian consultant. helping to manage the transport ships that moved goods around the Sol system. Privately, he had been planning the war. His strategy was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships would not try to hold territory. They would not fight the kind of wars the Council expected. Instead, they would appear without warning, strike critical targets, and vanish before anyone could respond. The Council has 400 ships in their enforcement fleet, he told his secret staff. We will have 50. By any normal calculation, we should lose. But we are not going to fight a normal war. We are going to fight our kind of war. Fast, unpredictable, and everywhere at once. The 5th year of banishment ended on a cold December night. In the hidden bases throughout the Sol system, crews boarded their ships. Engineers ran final checks on systems that had never been tested in real combat. Soldiers said goodbye to families who did not know where they were going. Commander Choi Yuna stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Indomitable, now equipped with technologies the Council could not imagine. She was 32 years old, the youngest fleet commander in human history. She had been chosen because she was brilliant, adaptable, and completely without mercy for those who had condemned her species to death. All ships report ready, her communications officer announced. Choi Yuna looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council went about its business, confident that the human threat had been contained. They were about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. Begin final preparations, she ordered. In 72 hours, we remind the galaxy that humanity does not know how to surrender. The Phantom Fleet powered up its engines. The exile years were over. The war was about to begin. The Council's enforcement fleet gathered near the Thessan Nebula for their annual display of power. 400 warships from 12 different species floated in perfect formation, their weapons gleaming under the light of distant stars. This was the largest military force in the galaxy, assembled every year to remind smaller civilizations of what happened to those who challenged. Council Authority. Fleet Admiral Vernash, a reptilian being with scales the color of dried blood, watched the exercise from his command ship. He had served the Council for 200 years. He had crushed rebellions on 17 worlds. He had never lost a battle. His censor officer interrupted his thoughts. Admiral, we are detecting an anomaly. Something is appearing inside our formation. Vernash frowned. Inside? That is impossible. Nothing can slip through our detection grid. But as he watched, 6 human ships materialized directly in the center of his fleet. They had not jumped in from outside. They had simply appeared, as if they had been invisible, and had suddenly decided to be seen. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Council ships tried to lock weapons on the human vessels, but their targeting systems could not find them. The human ships were there, visible to the naked eye, but somehow undetectable by any sensor technology the Council possessed. Then the human flagship, broadcast on all frequencies. In every Council language, says Admiral Park Doan of the Terran Phantom Fleet, humanity rejects the Council's sentence of banishment. We reject your laws. We reject your authority. We reject your right to judge us. We do not ask for your recognition. We do not seek your approval. We are taking back what is ours. Admiral Vernash stared at the display showing the human ships. His mind struggled to process what was happening. Humanity had been disarmed. Humanity had been confined. Humanity was supposed to be dying slowly in their little system. All ships, he ordered, his voice uncertain for the first time in centuries, destroy those vessels. But before his fleet could respond, the 6 human ships fired. Their weapons did not target the warships. Instead, they struck the communication relays, the sensor platforms, the command coordination stations. In 43 seconds, the most powerful military force in the galaxy went blind and deaf. Ships that had been in perfect formation began to drift. Captains shouted orders that no one could hear. Weapons fired wildly, sometimes hitting friendly vessels in the confusion. The careful order of the Council fleet collapsed into chaos, and then the human ships vanished, slipping back into whatever dimension they had come from, leaving no trace that they had ever been there. Admiral Vernash stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by darkness and silence. His ship had lost all external communications. He could not contact his fleet. He could not contact the Council. He could not even determine how much damage had been done. For the first time in 200 years, he felt fear. Across the galaxy, monitoring stations detected the incident. Within hours, every species knew what had happened. The whispers spread faster than any official communication. Humanity had returned. Humanity had technology no one understood. Humanity had humiliated the Council's greatest military force without losing a single ship. On Varus Prime, the Council convened an emergency session. High Arbiter Thesan towered over the assembled representatives, his insect eyes reflecting the light of 100 holographic displays showing the damage reports. "This is an act of war," he declared. "Humanity has violated the terms of their banishment. They have attacked Council forces. They must be destroyed completely." But others were not so certain. The representative from the Velish Trading Confederation raised a tentacle. "How do we fight an enemy we cannot detect? Our sensors could not find their ships. Our weapons could not lock onto them. What good are 400 warships if we cannot hit a target?" Admiral Vernash, who had made the journey to Varus Prime in humiliation, spoke carefully. "We do not understand their technology. I have been fighting wars for 200 years, and I have never seen anything like what happened at the nebula. Their ships do not move through space the way ours do. They appear and disappear at will. Our entire military doctrine is based on detecting enemy movements and intercepting them. Against humanity, that doctrine is useless." The chamber erupted in argument. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others counseled patience until they could understand the human technology. Still others suggested negotiation, wondering if perhaps the banishment had been a mistake. High Arbiter Thesan silenced them all with a gesture. "We will not negotiate with criminals. We will not show weakness. Humanity will be destroyed. I do not care how long it takes or how many ships we lose. They have challenged the Council, and they will pay the price." While the Council debated, President Yoon Murray prepared humanity's formal declaration. She recorded it in the same office where she had accepted the banishment 5 years earlier. But now her voice carried something different. Not defeat. Not sadness. Something cold and sharp, like a blade being drawn.
Ow.
To the Galactic Council. 5 years ago, you sentenced humanity to death. You took our ships. You confined us to our home system. You expected us to accept extinction quietly. You were wrong. She paused, letting the words carry their weight. While you watched us with satisfaction, believing we were dying, we were preparing. While your observers reported our weakness, we were growing stronger. While you celebrated your victory, we were building the tools of your defeat. Her eyes seemed to look through the camera, directly at every council member who would see this message. As of this moment, a state of war exists between the United Terran Republic and the Galactic Council. We will no longer be contained. We will no longer be ignored. We will no longer ask permission to exist among the stars. The message spread across the galaxy in minutes. Species that had never thought much about humans suddenly paid attention. Civilizations that had assumed the human problem was solved began to reconsider their assumptions. And in the hidden bases of the Sol system, the Phantom Fleet prepared for the next phase of operations. Commander Choi Yuna reviewed the target list with her officers. Communication hubs, supply depots, sensor networks. The infrastructure that held the Council's power together. "We cannot defeat them in direct combat," she reminded her crews. "Not yet. We have 50 ships. They have thousands. But we do not need to defeat them. We need to make them afraid. We need to make them doubt. We need to show them that nowhere is safe, that they cannot predict where we will strike next, that their size and strength mean nothing against an enemy they cannot find." Admiral Park Do-in joined her via hologram from another vessel. His hair was completely white now, his face marked by years of stress and planning. But his voice was steady, as the first strike was a message. The next strikes will be lessons. Every day, somewhere in the galaxy, something the Council depends on will stop working. They will send ships to investigate, and those ships will find nothing. They will try to guard everything, and they will discover they cannot guard everything. They will begin to fear the spaces between stars." He smiled, a thin and dangerous expression. "The Council has forgotten what it feels like to be prey. We are going to remind them." The Phantom Fleet dispersed into the void, each ship heading toward its assigned target. They traveled through dimensions the Council did not know existed. Visible to every sensor the galaxy had ever built, the war had begun. And humanity, the species the galaxy had written off as defeated, was about to teach the older civilizations a lesson they would never forget. Some predators were patient. Some predators waited in darkness, watching, planning, until the perfect moment to strike. Humanity had waited 5 years. Now the hunt was on. The first 6 months of the war changed everything the galaxy knew about conflict. Human ships appeared without warning at targets across 3 sectors. They struck supply convoys, destroyed communication relays, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Council fleets rushed from system to system, always arriving too late, always finding nothing but wreckage and silence. The military commanders of the Council could not adapt. Their strategies depended on detecting enemy movements and responding with overwhelming force. But they could not detect humanity. They could not predict where the next attack would come. They could not protect everything at once. Admiral Bernash assembled a task force of 60 ships to guard the critical supply lines in the Keshan sector. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. His crews grew tired from constant alert status. Then, on the 24th day, human ships appeared directly inside his formation, destroyed 4 supply vessels in 90 seconds, and disappeared. How? Bernash demanded of his sensor officers. How did they get past our detection grid? The officers had no answer. The human ships had not passed through any detection grid. They had simply appeared, done their damage, and vanished. It was as if they traveled through some dimension that Council technology could not see. On Keshan Prime, the heart of the Keshan hegemony, General Tae-young led the first human ground invasion of an alien world. His forces materialized inside the planetary defense network. Bypassing the orbital stations and ground shields completely, the Keshian military was massive. With millions of soldiers and thousands of armored vehicles, General O had only 12,000 troops. By every calculation, the invasion should have failed. Instead, his soldiers moved through the Keshian defenses like ghosts. They did not attack the main military bases. They targeted the shield generators, the communication centers, the power plants. Within 4 hours, Keshan Prime's defensive network was offline. General O accepted the planet's surrender, standing in the command center of their military headquarters. The Keshan generals stared at him with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "How did you get through our defenses?" the senior general asked. "We had every approach covered. We had sensors on every possible landing zone." General O allowed himself a small smile. "You prepared for the invasion you expected. You did not prepare for the invasion we planned." The capture of Keshan Prime sent shockwaves through the Council. This was no longer just a nuisance, no longer just raids on supply lines. Humanity could strike anywhere, at any time, and take whatever they wanted. Commander Choi Yuna led the fleet action against the Moran Collective. The Moran were the species that had bombed Sol Orbital 10 years earlier, killing 12,000 humans as a test of strength. Choi Yuna had been 17 years old when that happened. She had lost her mother in the attack. She did not seek revenge. Revenge was emotional, and emotion led to mistakes. Instead, she sought justice. She delivered it with cold precision. The Moran military gathered their fleet to defend their home system. 300 warships formed a defensive sphere around their world. Confident that no enemy could break through such a formation, Choi Yuna did not try to break through. Her ships appeared inside the sphere, in the small spaces between the Moran vessels. At that range, the Moran could not fire without hitting each other. In the confusion, human ships struck the command vessels, the supply tenders, the communication ships. Within an hour, the Moran fleet was scattered and leaderless. The bombardment of Moran military installations lasted 3 days. Choi Yuna targeted only military sites, sparing civilian areas. When the Moran government requested a ceasefire, she granted it immediately. "You attacked our home," she said to the Moran representatives. "You killed our civilians. We could destroy your civilization completely. Instead, we will accept your surrender and treat your people with the mercy you did not show us." She paused, her eyes hard. "Remember this mercy? It will not be offered again." As the war continued, cracks began to appear in the Council's alliance. The smaller species had always resented being dominated by the older powers. The Thesan hierarchy demanded total commitment to the war against humanity. But not everyone agreed. Agent Kong Jie worked these divisions carefully. She had spent years building contacts among the dissatisfied species. And now those contacts became valuable allies. The Velish Trading Confederation was the first to defect. They were a merchant species with little military power, dependent on the Council for protection. But they saw which way the war was going. They decided to make a deal before it was too late. GA met with their representatives in a neutral station far from any Council patrol route. She offered simple terms. The Velish would provide humanity with navigational data for the core systems, including patrol routes, sensor locations, and defensive positions. In exchange, humanity would guarantee Velish autonomy in whatever new order emerged from the war. "The Council sees you as servants," Jie told them. "We see you as potential partners. The choice is yours." The Velish accepted. Their information allowed the Phantom Fleet to strike even deeper into Council territory, hitting targets that had been considered completely secure. Other species followed. The Melian Republic, tired of paying tribute. To the Thesan hierarchy, the Korvan Assembly, whose request for equal representation had been ignored for centuries, the Distant Rim Coalition, a collection of minor species who had always felt like outsiders in Council politics. None of these defections were public. The Council still believed they faced only humanity. They did not know that their own members were feeding intelligence to the enemy, that the network of alliances they had built over millennia was crumbling from within. President Yuan managed the diplomatic side of the war with careful attention. She sent messages to Council species offering alternatives to continued conflict. She emphasized that humanity did not seek dominance, only equality. She painted a picture of a new galactic order where no single power could bully the others. "We are not trying to replace the Council," she explained in a broadcast aimed at neutral species. "We are trying to build something better. A galaxy where every species has a voice. A galaxy where the strong cannot abuse the weak. A galaxy where what happened to humanity can never happen again." These messages found receptive audiences. Species that might have supported the Council began to doubt. Species that had feared humanity started to see them as potential liberators rather than threats. By the end of the first year, the war had transformed the galaxy. The Council's authority was shattered across 3 sectors. Their military had suffered defeats that would have been unimaginable 18 months earlier. Their economy was disrupted by raids that made interstellar trade dangerous, and humanity, the species that had been sentenced to extinction, grew stronger every day. The Phantom Fleet expanded to 200 ships. New technologies emerged from Dr. Lee's research programs. Allies provided resources and information that multiplied human capabilities. High Arbiter Thesan refused to accept reality. In the Council chambers, on Varus Prime, he continued to demand total war, continued to promise victory, continued to blame failures on incompetence rather than facing the truth. "Humanity is a disease," he declared. "Diseases are cured through strength, not negotiation. We will increase our military production. We will find their hidden bases. We will burn their homeworld until nothing remains." But fewer and fewer species listened to him. The old order was dying. The question was no longer whether the Council would survive, but what would replace it. Admiral Park Doan understood this. He had won battles, but he knew that winning battles was not the same as winning wars. Wars were won by breaking the enemy's will to fight, and the Council's will was finally beginning to break. "One more push," he told his staff. "One decisive action, that shows the galaxy the Council cannot protect even itself. After that, their empire falls apart on its own. He began planning the attack on Varus Prime. The final battle was coming. The war lasted 18 months. It ended not with a final battle, but with a collapse that spread faster than anyone expected. The Moran Collective surrendered completely after their home. System fell to human forces. The Keshan hegemony fractured into civil war when the species they had conquered for centuries saw their chance for freedom and took it. 12 minor council members simply stopped responding to communications from Varus Prime. Quietly distancing themselves from a losing cause, the great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was falling apart, and no one could stop it. High Arbiter Thesan refused to accept reality. From his throne room on Varus Prime, he broadcast calls for unity, for sacrifice, for one final stand against the human menace. He gathered every ship still loyal to the Council, every soldier willing to fight, every weapon that could be found. The defenders of Varus Prime numbered over 500 warships and millions of soldiers. It was the largest defensive force ever assembled around a single world. Thesan believed it would be enough. Admiral Park Doan brought the full Phantom fleet to the system. 200 human vessels emerged from dimensional slip in a perfect sphere around the planet. Close enough to see the lights of the cities below, he broadcast his message on all frequencies. Knowing that every being in the system and beyond would hear it, High Arbiter Thesan, 6 years ago, you sentenced humanity to death. You called us criminals. You called us a disease. You believed that by taking our ships and confining us to our home system, you could make us disappear. You were wrong. Park Doan paused, letting the silence carry weight. Today, I offer you a choice. Surrender yourself and the remaining Council leadership. Face trial for the crimes committed against humanity and the other species your Council has oppressed. If you do this, the civilian population of Varus Prime will not be harmed. Your people will be treated with the respect you never showed us. His voice hardened. Or fight. Watch everything you built burn. Watch your fleet destroyed ship by ship. Watch your world brought to its knees. The choice is yours. But know this. I genuinely do not care which option you select. Either way, the Council ends today. Thesan's response came quickly, filled with rage that even the translation systems could not hide. Humanity will never dictate terms to me. Attack them. Destroy them all. The Battle of Varus Prime lasted for hours. The Council fleet fought with desperate courage, but courage was not enough. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking from angles that should have been impossible, targeting weak points that should have been protected. The Council vessels could not track their enemies, could not coordinate their defense, could not do anything except die. One by one, Commander Choi Yuna led the assault on the orbital defense platforms. Her ships moved through the Council formation like predators through a herd of prey, picking off targets with cold efficiency. She had trained for this moment for years. She did not celebrate as enemy vessels exploded. She simply moved to the next target, and the next, and the next. General Oh Tae-young commanded the ground forces that landed on Varus Prime itself. His soldiers secured the government district in under 2 hours, moving through Thesan's guards with the same precision they had shown on Keshan Prime. Every defensive position had been identified in advance. Every countermeasure had been anticipated. High Arbiter Thesan died in his throne room, but not by human hands. His own guards killed him when it became clear that the battle was lost. They preferred surrender to the total destruction that Thesan's stubbornness would have brought. When Admiral Park Doan entered the Council chamber, he found it empty except for bodies. The representatives who had gathered there had fled, surrendered, or died. The throne where the High Arbiter had pronounced humanity's sentence sat vacant. Covered in dust and debris from the battle, Park Doan stood before that throne for a long moment. He thought about the years of humiliation. He thought about the human colonies that had been taken. He thought about the people who had died because the Council feared what humanity might become. Then he turned away and walked out. The throne could rot where it stood. Humanity had not come here to replace one tyrant with another. President Yoon. Mireille arrived on Varus Prime 3 days after the battle. She came to negotiate the peace, but found that there was little negotiation needed. The council was broken. Its members were scrambling to make separate deals with humanity before their rivals could do the same. The Treaty of New. Terra established a new galactic order. There would be no single council holding power over all species. Instead, regions would govern themselves, with a loose assembly, handling matters that affected everyone. No species would have special authority. Disputes would be resolved through arbitration, not force. This is not a human empire, President Yoon explained in her address to the galaxy. We did not fight this war to become what the Council was. We fought to make sure no one could ever do to another species what was done to us. She looked old now, exhausted by years of leading humanity through its greatest crisis. But her eyes still held fire. The Council tried to kill us because they were afraid. They were afraid of our numbers, our adaptability, our refusal to accept the place they assigned us. They thought that by confining us to our home system, they could make that fear go away. She shook her head slowly. They did not understand. Humans do not become less dangerous when you threaten them. We become more dangerous. Every time someone has tried to destroy us, we have come back stronger. Every time so. Miona's told us we cannot do something. We have found a way. This is who we are. This is what we will always be. The galaxy listened. Some with relief that the war was over. Some with lingering fear of what humanity had shown itself capable of. Some with hope that the new order would be better than the old. 10 years later, Dr. Lee Suji stood on the observation deck of Horizon Station. The station was humanity's first permanent facility outside the Milky Way, positioned in the void between galaxies where the stars of home were just a faint glow on the horizon. She was very old now, her body frail, her movements slow, but her mind remained sharp. She insisted on seeing the project she had made possible reach this milestone. Her granddaughter, Lieutenant Lee Minji, stood beside her. Minji had been born during the war, had grown up hearing stories of humanity's struggle, joined the exploration corps as soon as she was old enough. Now she commanded one of the new deep space vessels that were pushing beyond every boundary the galaxy had ever known. "We received a signal today," Minji said quietly. "From the Andromeda Galaxy, another civilization reaching out. They have never heard of the Council. They want to know if we come in peace." Dr. Lee smiled, looking out at the infinite darkness ahead. Somewhere out there, in distances that made the wars of the past seem small, new peoples waited to be met. New challenges waited to be faced. New chapters of human history waited to be written. "Tell them," she said, "that we come in hope. Tell them that humans once thought they were alone in the universe, now that we have spent our entire existence reaching out to find others. Tell them that we have made mistakes and that we have learned from them." She paused, thinking of everyone who had sacrificed to bring humanity to this moment. The soldiers who had died in battle, the scientists who had worked in secret for decades, the leaders who had carried impossible burdens, the ordinary people who had endured banishment with dignity and emerged stronger on the other side. "Tell them," she continued, "that hope is something worth fighting for. We learned that lesson the hard way, and we will spend the rest of our existence making sure it was not learned in vain." Lieutenant Lee Mingi recorded the message and sent it outward, into the void between galaxies, toward whatever waited on the other side. Behind them, the Milky Way continued its slow rotation, carrying the worlds where humanity had been born, where they had been condemned, where they had risen again. Ahead of them, the universe stretched without end, full of mysteries that would take millions of years to explore in humanity. The species that had refused to accept extinction, that had turned banishment into strength, that had defied a galaxy and won, continued forward into the unknown. They had always been explorers. They had always been survivors. And they would never, ever stop reaching for the stars.